Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Ciao, everybody. Welcome to Past the Wire TV, our Kentucky Derby Radar series. I think it's safe to say we're in the home stretch at this point. We've got the Louisiana Derby in the books, the UAE Derby in the books. This week, we've got the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby. The following week, we've got the Wood Memorial, the Bluegrass, the Santa Anita Derby, and then that little sneak in, try to get in late if you got a shot, the Lexington at Keeneland, which I don't know that we could really call it a Derby prep. It's kind of like a sneak in the back door kind of race, in my opinion. But hey, if it gets you in, it gets you in, right?
Yeah, and they also had the Jeff Ruby, the Sunland Derby, so things are rocking and rolling. They definitely are. Mm-hmm.
They did. Let's recap some of those races real quick, and we'll talk about the other two for this week real quick. I don't think there's a lot to go into. We'll see where it leads us, but I'll start with this: the UAE Derby, Derma Sotogake. I hope I'm saying it correctly. I don't speak Japanese. My opinion, no way wins the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it was a horse from over there win one yet, right? So
right. UAE Derby horse has never won. Japanese one has never won. A lot of people are raving about the Japanese, and hey, I see what everybody sees. They're doing absolutely phenomenal. We get all that. They're winning all these big races. But mind your biscuits, alone on a lead out there in the desert, coming here facing these kind of horses with the different kind of pace and scenario. I don't know. I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was, for them, the Japanese have just really taken it to another level in these international races. And, kudos to them. And they're going to get there. I don't know if it's this year, but I think that they'll see, can we come from the desert and come over, or do we need to be in the States earlier and campaign in the United States leading up to the Kentucky Derby? I think that's where they'll go, but it remains to be seen.
I agree with you. They're figuring everything out, so it's only a matter of time until they figure that out as well. But anybody else behind the Japanese horse that caught either of your eyes?
No one for me.
Me either.
Yeah, same here. And if you look at some of the other races, I don't think the performances were strong enough, to carry to really get on the radar. I know we talked about the Jeff Ruby and the Sunland Derby, but I don't think they're going to be strong enough performances to make their way. They might get into the Derby, but contenders, I don't think we found a contender in there.
Well, it's interesting, Two Phils ran the fastest buyer number, and I'm not a buyer guy. I don't look at them. I just happen to see somebody write about that, of any 3-year-old this year. But he did it in the Jeff Ruby on a synthetic racetrack. How that transposes to, the dirt at Churchill Downs is a whole nother story. He was impressive over there in the Jeff Ruby. I don't see him as a serious Derby contender at this point. Kingsbarns, I will say this, and I think we spoke about it on our other shows. I was never of the opinion, like a lot of people are, that instant coffee was all that, and I think we found out that he might not be, and B, that all the better horses are in Louisiana this year, the better 3-year-olds. I was never a fan of that. That being said, I do think Kingsbarns ran an excellent race, despite it being a relatively slow race. But he was on the lead. They went slow. He waltzed around there. He drew away from them. And, I don't know that had he been challenged or pressured to go faster that he couldn't have. And I don't know that that's really how he wants to run. I think he really wants to sit second or third stalking. I can definitely see that horse going forward again. He's on my relatively short list of contenders.
I agree with you there. He's got the trainer behind him. He's got the breeding behind him. So I think he's got a definite chance to take a step forward off of that effort.
Yeah, just real quick on Two Phils. I think he was, maybe that wise guy horse in a couple of those preps down in Louisiana and just couldn't get the job done. So, shipping out of town, going up against a little bit of a weaker field than what he was probably facing, to get a win. I thought that was a fine effort, and had every right to improve off of his last couple of races. So not a super surprising result there. And I don't know that he would be a Kentucky Derby win contender for me, but I'm not going to dismiss him entirely. Kingsbarns, the chatter after the Louisiana Derby was, the race was so slow, soft fractions, this and that. It's like, what more do you want the horse to do in his third career race? He broke sharp, got to the front, carried them all the way around, and then kicked away from them down the stretch. Like, what more could he have possibly done to be a reasonably impressive winner, doing everything that he needed to do to win that race and cement himself in the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby? I thought it was fine. I liked it. And, hopefully everybody else continues to poo-poo it, because, I was pleased, and I bet his connections were pretty pleased with the effort as well.
I agree 100%. I'm curious to see if Pratt sticks with him or jumps on one of his other options. Everybody is on, or most people are on the Forte bandwagon when it comes to Todd's horses, and I think all three of his horses, Forte included, but Kingsbarns and Tappet Trice, I think they're all major players, and he holds as strong a hand as anybody, including Brad Cox, heading into Louisville on the first Saturday in May.
Yeah, I think if you can get away with the easy fractions and you can do it on a high cruising speed, I mean, they don't put the time on the check when they give you the winning check. They don't say, we're going to deduct because you didn't go as fast as you crossed the line first, you get the money, and it doesn't take as much out of your horse. So I think it, like you said, Jim, I think it was a great setup where, hey, I think good horses are fast. Do they need it early in the race? Do they need it late in the race? Do they need to avoid trouble? So I think you need options. You can stalk and still come and close and get them, or you can relax on the lead. If, the favorite next to you, two speed horses stumble and knock each other down and you're alone on the lead, if you'll relax and rate out there and still can finish, I think that's great options to have for a trainer, jockey, and the horse's ability. So
no argument. I wasn't that down on the second place finisher, Disarm, for Steve Asmussen, as a lot of people seem to be. A lot of people are saying, there was really nobody of any interest behind Kingsbarns. And I'm not so sure I agree with that. I thought Disarm ran a good race, had a little bit of traffic, was his second start off the layoff, and also at two turns. Steve Asmussen said before the race that he, had missed a little time. He was a little bit behind the eight ball. He was, looking for a good effort, a 1-2 kind of effort from him that he can go forward off of. I think he got that. And he's a horse to me that is still improving and on the upswing. And, I always kind of look for those horses that look, a step or two behind or a cut or two below heading into Louisville that are going to, maybe jump up and peak. And, it's a little early to say, but he looks like the type that might be that type, that can jump up and run a much better race in the Derby, and, maybe not necessarily win it, but certainly, get a piece possibly.
Yeah, we highlighted it in the Kentucky Derby wagering guide on pastthewire.com. Usually, right, the horses that finish 1-2 in their final preps tend to perform the best in the Kentucky Derby. So Disarm certainly has as good a shot as anybody to be a legitimate contender with, another 5 weeks to mature a little bit and get his legs under him. I'm in total agreement with you.
Well, we move over to, let's get the big horse out of the way. Florida Derby, Forte, drew a wide post. When I first saw that, I hadn't looked at the past performances at all. And I said, wow, that's, obviously not ideal statistically at Gulfstream Park. When I looked at the past performances, it didn't seem to faze me at all. I'm imagining that, the racing office at Gulfstream Park made an awful lot of phone calls and put a lot of pressure on people and a lot of, hey, we need to get this field size up. We need handle. We need horses. Run, please run. Because I don't know how they got 12 in there. And half of them look to me like they don't belong in there. Maybe more. So I think you could start Forte from Hallandale Beach Boulevard and he'd still be relatively tough to beat. And that's outside the parking lot, outside the shopping mall, pretty much a ways away. That'd be like starting a horse at the Santa Anita Mall, Jeff, just so you can kind of put it in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of Forte from the beginning, as I've stated. And an outside post when you have a long run down that first straightaway, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I actually like it because you can see what happens inside of you, and then you can kind of dictate your race from there. The way he was so sharp in his comeback, I mean, I think he's only going to be better with a race under his belt. And I'm like you, when I saw Maidens in the race, I said, oh boy, nobody wants to run against this horse. And, so Maiden, allowance horses, and some of the horses that ran against him before, they don't want to do it again. So they're looking elsewhere.
This is what you want, right? As a handicapper, you want the heavy favorite to face adversity in his finals prep before the Kentucky Derby. I don't suspect any of us are going to throw some win dollars behind Forte because there's just simply no value there. But looking forward to the Kentucky Derby, this race will give us some pretty decent insights moving forward. So in that regard, yeah, the post kind of sucks for him, but I think from a handicapping angle in the future, we can learn a fair bit from his effort to see what happens on Saturday. There's a little bit of other intrigue in here for me, at least. I feel like he should win, right? Regardless of the post position, he should win. He should dominate these horses. But again, we're looking for other horses that might be able to step up and give us a little bit of insights in the next couple of weeks when they all line up again at Churchill Downs. So a couple of ones that stuck out to me. Mage, again, we've talked about him. I thought he got the worst of that trip in the Fountain of Youth. Broke slow, got checked in deep stretch, and still was part of that front pack that was able to hang on there, and they ran decent fractions, I thought. So I'd expect a decent effort from him with a little bit of added distance and some extra weeks of maturing under his belt. I think he'll be one I'll be looking at to step up a little bit. I thought Cyclone Mischief ran pretty well last time. And then the other interesting thing that I found was Mr. Peaks and Nautical Star. Both for Saffie Joseph, both for C2 Racing Stables, and both of those horses have the complete opposite running styles, it seems. So a little bit of interesting entries for both of them, coming off of, well, Mr. Peaks doesn't even have a win yet, but I thought that was a little bit odd. Maybe again, I'm reading too much into it, and it is just a way to fill the entry box. But if you're gonna send Mr. Peaks out on the lead, perhaps there's the ability for this Nautical Star to get up and snag a piece at the end. So that's mostly what I'm looking at outside of Forte running off and winning by 5-6 lengths.
I know,
from a
Jim,
handicap, go ahead,
Mhm.
Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I know Jim said, you like those horses sometimes that run second because first or second kind of gets them a nice stepping stone leading in. So two horses that stuck out to me with that shot to kind of run second, because that's kind of what we've been looking at, is West Coast Cowboy and, like you mentioned, Cyclone Mischief. I thought those two had a chance to come in second or third and kind of, complete the trifecta with Forte strongly on top.
Getting back to what you started off with, Jim, when you look at these things from a handicapping perspective, okay, we like to see, a horse have a little adversity heading into that last Derby prep, get a little bit of an education, have to, overcome something or, fight a little bit to toughen them up for that first Saturday in May. On the flip side of that, okay, looking a move or two ahead, okay, Forte is probably going to be the favorite going into the gate on the first Saturday in May. I'm probably not going to bet on him because I'm just probably not. Thinking that way, and I certainly wouldn't mind because, Saturday is Saturday, but Derby Day is Derby Day. I wouldn't mind seeing him get a perfect trip, tuck in a little bit, go past everybody on a turn, win off easy by 5, and knock down a couple of points on his price on Derby Day. You follow me? So instead of being 5-2, 2-1, he's 8-5, 3-2, because he just won another one easy, and even more people love him and jump on the bandwagon, which will create more value betting against him. So that scenario, I don't mind seeing. You follow me? So,
Yeah.
A lot of people will go to the racetrack on Saturday and say, this is not a great betting race. This is that. And I look at it differently. I look at, well, that may be correct today, but it doesn't mean it's the kind of race that you can't glean something out of to use to your advantage at some point going forward. Now, a training question, Jeff. You've got Forte. You're in the Derby. Okay, you're in. Okay, you drew a wide post. You don't want to peak on Saturday. You want to peak on the next big Saturday in the Run for the Roses. I think if you're Todd Pletcher, you're really under like a no pressure kind of situation where you can just go out there and tell IRAD, hey, listen, see how it plays out. Give him a nice trip. Don't abuse him. Don't get him in any trouble. Don't, take any unnecessary chances. Just kind of, get him around there. Let him get something out of the race. And, I'll tighten the screws between now and the big dance and have him ready for that. Does that make any sense from a training perspective? Or is that win still all that important?
No, I think that the ultimate goal is, and we're talking the Derby prep here, but you also got to think, is this horse good enough for the Triple Crown? And so you definitely don't want him to empty his tank on a prep race right before the first big dance, which is the Kentucky Derby. So as a training, you're going to say, just don't empty the tank, don't go all out. And if you're in a stretch drive, which I don't see that happening, but if you were, just don't empty out just to win this race. I think that's going to be the big key, is like, let him run within himself. Even his B game is probably good enough to beat this field. But I think that, he's on the outside. He can dictate where he is. He's not like down on the inside and some speed rabbit's going to come, mire him on the inside and get him blocked on the rail. Because now the biggest thing you want is, you don't want any injuries. You don't want clipping heels. You don't want any problems in traffic. So you really want him out in the clear, in the clean, and not overexert at the end of the race. So if he can win this by 5 under a gallop and the jock's looking back, where is everybody? And he never even uses the whip once. That's the kind of effort they're going to probably want from him. Todd Pletcher's been here before. Ortiz has been here before. So they know going in, the ultimate goal is Kentucky. And then even looking beyond that, is he good enough to win all 3 races?
Mage comes from some pretty sharp connections. They weren't necessarily going to run here, and then they decided to run here. That's kind of a vote of confidence in my book for a horse that's only had 2 starts. I thought he should have been on the lead in the Fountain of Youth. He wasn't. I think that compromised his chances at running a better race. I don't think he was going to win, but I think that compromised his chances at running a better race. I could see improvement coming from him. And I can see improvement coming from Tim's horse, formerly Bob's horse, Fort Bragg, who only has 1 start back as a 3-year-old. Didn't really look as good as he did at 2, but you know, maybe we could find an excuse we don't know about in there somewhere, and you know, he can jump up and possibly improve.
And one other note I'll say as a trainer is, with stakes you can scratch and it's not a big deal. So I could conceivably seeing 1 or 2 scratches that, you know what, the field came up quite tough, we're not going to put our horse in. So I could see a couple scratches coming out, because it's no harm, no foul when that happens.
Number 1 is Mo Donegal by Uncle Mo. And they're off in the Remsen. As they come on for the finish, and it's going to be tight here in the Remsen. Mo Donegal bearing down on the outside. It's Mo Donegal and early voting, and it is Mo Donegal to win the Wood Memorial. And it will be Mo Donegal to win the Test of the Champion, the Belmont Stakes.
Let's head down. Well, I can't really say south, because Florida is actually more south than Arkansas, really, when you think about it, even though if you visit both places, you probably wouldn't think that. And I always say in Florida, the more north you go, the more south you get, which is true. And if you've been here, you would understand that. But Arkansas, Hot Springs. I said coming out of the what was it? Not the Smarty Jones, but was it the Smarty Jones? The race
Southwest.
The Southwest, that Reincarnate, I thought didn't get a hold of that sloppy track, didn't have a good trip. And when he did, I thought he was running best at the end. I think on a fast track, he's absolutely the horse to beat. And that's where I land. I think I think that race came up much tougher than the Florida Derby as far as contenders go, but I like Reincarnate to take a big step forward.
Yeah, he's my pick in the race too. And I was talking to a couple people in the barn there and saying, hey, when does the horse leave? Because they said, you know, he left the other day, and he was like, oh man, that horse is something. He's just a strong, powerful horse. And so I know they're excited for the race, and I like his chances.
Yeah, it's hard to look past him in this one. I think, you know, Rocket Can impressed me a little bit his last time out. You know, a lot of the chatter was that, you know, he got you know, everything his way when he won that race 2 back, the Holy Bull. But I thought he ran okay last time out, and, you know, has every reason to improve here. Angel of Empire, a little bit of I'm interested in why they targeted this race and not the Risen Star sticking at Fairgrounds. Perhaps it's the, you know, closer time frame to the Kentucky Derby. So I'll be interested to see how he runs. And then some equipment changes on Red Route 1 are interesting to me. You know, I thought he was going to get up and win the what was it last time?
Southwest.
Yeah, the Southwest. But we'll see. You know, I think, like you both said,
Was it the Rebel or the Southwest? Might have been the Rebel. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
the Rebel. Yeah. I think he finished second or third there. the race goes through Reincarnate, so I'll be interested to see how he performs. But yeah, Rocket Can and Red Route 1 for a little bit for me, I think.
Rocket Can, I thought, and don't know, but I thought he went to this spot when logically he could have stayed in Florida and run in the Florida Derby. I think he ducked Forte.
Yeah.
I think that's what they did with him. And I have a feeling with Angel of Empire, they went this route because they wanted to get away from Instant Coffee, who everybody thought was really good. That I was just never on his bandwagon, but I think that they probably wanted to avoid him. You know, Cox. When you're fortunate enough, like guys like, you know, this year Tim Yakteen with his own horse and with Bob's horses, Todd with all of his horses, Brad Cox with all of his horses. You got to kind of play juggling stakes a little bit with these horses and try and keep them apart. So I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing with some of these. But I think with Rocket Can, it's obvious to me without asking Bill Mott and, you know, having any insight, obvious to me they ducked Forte because, I mean, the horse is stabled over there. He's over there. You know, he's run his other two preps over there. Why all of a sudden, you know, he likes to track why ship here when, you know, you're right there. So to me, I think that's a little obvious.
Yeah, I think you kind of get the horse used to shipping, running on a different track. I think that you definitely you try to win the race instead of knowing you're probably running for second at your home track. So I agree. I think it's ducking Forte, and like I said, I can see why.
I'll close my thoughts on Kentucky Derby radar this week with this. You know, all this year I've been saying I've been waiting for somebody to jump up and emerge that's not really on the radar, you know? And it hasn't really happened. There's a horse of Brad Cox, Bishop's Bay, that looks like he has that potential, but I don't know. I think he's out of time. You know, I think time caught up with us as far as somebody who's a maiden or a one-time winner jumping up now and really, you know, emerging into the, you know, into the leader category. Obviously, it's not going to happen this week in either of the two big preps because we know most of these horses, unless one of those maidens or somebody at Gulfstream jumps up. But none of them really look to me, even like if they won that race, they'd be that kind of horse. I don't see anybody in Arkansas either that really fits that bill. Maybe next week there's somebody that jumps up out of a maiden that runs in one of those three peps. So it's not impossible yet, but we're almost out of time for that to happen. So it looks like the leaders are going to be the leaders and the ones to beat come first Saturday in May.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're seeing the contenders right now, and so I think that we're gonna kind of see how they all shape up. And now I think you're just praying for no injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember a few years ago, wasn't it Danza that stepped up big time and won the Arkansas Derby?
Yes.
And you know, he was like 9 or 10-1 or maybe even higher that day. And then he ended up finishing 4th in the Derby. So, you know, like you said, I think we're all still kind of waiting for that one horse to kind of burst on the scene late. You know, perhaps it was Kingsbarns last week. You know, maybe we'll see somebody else this week or the following week. But yeah, I think we're still waiting for that one horse to kind of come out of nowhere, and it hasn't happened yet.
And we do have that Japanese horse running in the Santa Anita Derby, and we're all talking about the Japanese horses. So maybe that's the one. Who knows? You know, maybe he runs a bang up race in the Santa Anita Derby, beats Tim's other horse, and then all of a sudden he's the wise guy horse heading in because everybody's going to love the Japanese angle on that. We know that. So
yeah, everybody loves an angle. Loves the underdog like it's never been done, and you know, that's what people like.
Yep. Well, it looks like that's a wrap on next to last show. We'll have one more Derby Radar show next week. We've got our Derby seminar coming up on Past the Wire. lot of information out there, a lot of stuff still to dissect and go through. Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Same here. Yeah.
We'll reconvene next week and see what shakes out on Saturday. Ciao for now.
Sounds good. Take
Thanks.
care. Mhm.
Nobody does it better.